want to become?
Who do we
want to
become?
be the change that we want to
change
see,
that we
to
want to
see in
see,
the
to
world.
see in the world. Hi, I'm Patricia. Before recorded history, humans knew singing as a deep source of power. Power to change, power to heal, power to be present with what is. Right here, right now, we are remembering the ancient gift of song, using modern tech to help us tap into resilience and capacity in chaotic, difficult times. Welcome to the 150th episode of A Breath of Song. Wow! I'm so glad you chose to do this today, which is extra special because Mary Cohen is joining us for a songwriter conversation. Hi, Mary, welcome.
Thank you, Patricia. It is such a joy to be here with you today. Thanks for the invitation and for all of the amazing resources and conversations and enlightening things we get to learn by listening to A Breath of Song podcast.
Oh, thanks. We are here finding more ways to sing songs that help us heal and adapt and grow. Each of our voices is exactly what is needed for this. I'm coming to you straight from my home in what is now called Burlington, Vermont, on the unceded homelands of the Abenaki people, on sand plains between the Winooski River and Lake Champlain. Mary, can you tell us where you're calling from?
Sure. I am calling from a town currently called Coralville, Iowa. I'd love to rewrite the spelling of it to Coralville, C-H-O-R-A-L, Coralville. And there was actually a place in Kansas called Lansing where I first learned about prison choirs, and I thought, isn't that kind of interesting?
Yeah.
Correlation of sounds and words. But Coralville is located in Iowa, on the southeast part of the state. It is west of the Iowa River, which is a tributary of the Mississippi River. And there are many, 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 many tribal nations that call this space home, like 14 tribal nations.
Wow.
Yeah, and many of these tribal nations had several tribes. So those include the Chippewa, 23 tribes, the Iowa, 2 tribes, Kickapoo, 3 tribes, the Menominee, Miami, Missouri, Omaha, Etoh, Ottawa, 4 tribes, Ponca, 2 tribes, Potawatomi had 7 tribes, Sac and Fox, 3 tribes, the Sioux, 17 tribes, and Winnebago, 2 tribes. And many of these tribal nations are still living and thriving in the state. Meskwaki is not too far from where I am, southeast part of Iowa. So really close I'm right next door to Iowa City, where the University of Iowa is located. And whenever I say it, I usually say, not Ohio or Idaho, Iowa. Very similar sounding. So, and also I'm living in my body. That's where I try to live.
Sweet. All of our voices in our bodies will turn up as they are today. And no matter what, we can feel the connection to our breath and that vibration inside our body. Let's find how good it can feel to sing. Last week, I shared Mary's song, May My Tears Water a Sapling. Today, Mary will be teaching us the change. We'll learn it slowly so it can settle inside you and you can begin to trust it as a resource. Let it move you into a state of flow. Then we'll get to enjoy a conversation with Mary, and we'll close out with the song again at the end. You'll always be able to find this episode with full show notes and artwork in the Library of Songs at abreathofsong.com. Let's start with a good yawn stretch. Maybe rolling your shoulders a little bit, stretching your back, whatever feels good in your body that you're in right now, your habitat. Finding space. Sometimes I like to imagine all of the molecules in my body kind of shifting a little bit apart from each other, so there's a little more space inside. And then noticing the air as it comes in and releases out. And letting it drop between the ribs, widening the rib cage and releasing. And dropping into the belly. Of course, it doesn't technically do that. Release. But it feels like that happens because all of the soft organs get shifted when we breathe. And then another breath, feeling like it drops into your pelvis. Let it flood out. And then some oohs and ahs that just slide up and down your slippery spine. Ooh. I'm going to invite you to also chew a little bit like you're chewing the yummiest caramel. And then say as you chew. Yeah, and one more really relaxed up and over the top sigh. Mary, I'm going to pass it over to you to share the change.
Great. The song, The Change. I'll just sing it. We'll join in and adapt as needed. So let's again take another breath in and a sigh out. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Join me on the little introduction. It goes ooh, ooh, ooh. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. So as you probably recognize, Patricia, where do you think these words come from?
Is that not Gandhi?
Let us be the change we wish to see in the world. And the way this song, I wrote it in a canon. It was actually an assignment way back years ago when I did a Dalcroze training and we were required to write a song in a round. So this song can be adapted many, many, many ways. And in the choir that I used to lead in the Oakdale prison, called the Oakdale Community Choir, we've done it twice. The first time in D minor, very simple, where we just had that introduction, ooh, or the fifth above, ooh, ooh, and then the song, who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Rhythmically, that little phrase where the melodic line goes up. Of course, anybody listening to this podcast can take what they hear in the song and adapt it in any way. Creative Commons license in the biggest creative sense possible. Take it and adapt it. In my mind, when I was thinking of the melody, that's the part when I teach it to people that they kind of mess up on a little bit. If you call a mess up. We don't really have mess ups in singing though, do we, Patricia? But it goes, who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see. Like that.
And while you're doing specifics, my question is more at the end. Want to see in this world who. I want to check that I'm finding all of those notes on the way down.
You got every one of them. It's just a descending minor scale.
Okay.
Of like if you practice solfege, mi, re, do, ti, la are the pitches.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and rhythmically that phrase, who, like long, short, 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 long. As far
Fabulous.
as one version of this song.
Yeah.
Now,
And I want to say, I do think
Mm-hmm.
there are mess ups in singing, and I think mess ups are okay. I think that's how we sort out what it is we where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I think it might have been your interview with Aaron Johnson. There was one that was like, wow, oh my God, I want to listen to that entire interview again. That was phenomenal. I'd love to meet him. The thing that I found super interesting was either that one or a different interview. There was a point about AI, artificial intelligence, and how we need to have our sounds. And there's research, out there in voice science about the value of having a mixture of, the spirit of the pitch when we're talking about singing in a pitch and whatever. So one thing I love about this song and other songs that are kind of a simple canon like this is we can arrange it in so many ways. Mm-hmm. So we can sing the song unison, boom, have fun with it. We could sing the song in a canon, maybe for now, the one measure canon.
So you're going to go who, and then I'm going to go who.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Let's go for that. Ready? I'll start. Who do we want to become?
Who do we want to become?
Be the
We
change
want
that
to
we
be
want
the
to
change
see,
that we want
to see in the
world.
So that little interlude, after it's done in a canon, maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times, the interlude can happen for a few measures. Then you could sing the song at maybe a 2-beat canon. If you have a large group of people, you can really play with texture. Mm-hmm. So between the feeling of a unison homophonic sound, a 2-part sound, and then you add it to a smaller who, like that.
Let's try that.
That could be really fun.
Let's try it.
Try that one?
Yeah.
Play with that one? Okay, ready? I'll go first. And who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Who do we want to become?
Who do we want to become?
The change that we want to
change
see,
that we want to see in the world. I'm just going to insert here a week after the conversation that we had, as I'm editing it, that you will hear that I am messing up in this rounds, right? Because I didn't yet know the song really well. I got most of it, but then I was getting confused at the end. So I ended up deciding to leave that in there because messing up, as Mary and I just talked about, is part of singing. Okay, here we go back to the conversation. Then from there, depending on how you want to structure it, we can go into freestyle. And when I've instructed freestyle with large groups that have never done free improv as a full group, I give them a very simple choice of options. They can sing the simple part, which on some songs might just be a drone, one pitch and just hold it. This one has like that little simple ostinato that we've been doing as an introduction. Or the fifth above that, or the octave above it, any place in there that feels good harmonically. So that could happen, and the people that are singing in improvisatory sound could just sing that little introduction, or they could sing a phrase of the song over and over again, like who do we want? Who do we want? Who, maybe just they stick with that for a while. Maybe they want to sing a different phrase, like, let's see, who do we want to be? Like, we want to be any part of the song that they just feel like they love to sing. Just they sing it over and over and over again. Then the thing that is most probably, one of the things, there's a lot of things that are great about singing, aren't there? But one of the things when this free improvisation happens, I always invite people to think about the ratio of the number of ears on their body to mouth. And that we ideally are listening twice as much as we're producing, so we're hearing and responding to what's happening in the communal voice that we hear around us. Mm-hmm. So there might be someone in the group
that's singing a special little phrase of the song, or something that like maybe they're singing out or even speaking out a change that they wish to have happen in their own personal lives or within their own community lives or the broader global life, or how we're interacting with our Mother Nature, whatever comes to that person's mind. So there's lots and lots of ways of adding the free improv instruction.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to share about that you've done with other groups?
I'm just wondering what you'd like to do right now to help people who are listening to this podcast right now drop into the song with space for that kind of free improvisation. Like if one of us is singing the melody over and over again, one of us is exploring one of the drone parts, and the people who are listening right now can be choosing theirs, or how you'd like to arrange it right now with your voice, my voice, and knowing that the listeners are adding their voice.
Brilliant. Here's an idea. If we sing it through twice in unison, and then we both go to the introduction and call that an interlude, and then while that interlude's going on, anyone listening to the podcast can just sing whatever they think they want to, just freestyle. And the two of us could do the interlude while that gives space for them to sing anything they wish. Then we can go into the song in a canon. This was a structure we used the first time the Oakdale Choir did it. We simply sang the song, unison, interlude, improvisation, then into the canon.
Nice.
I think is how we did it.
How about we do that? How about if you take the drone on the tonic, on the law, on the low pitch, and I'll take it on the mi.
Okay.
Is that because here's the complication for you who are listening. Well, Mary's not going to be able to hear me as we're singing because we are on Zoom, because we're in separate states. So she doesn't know what I'm doing. She has to just trust me. I can hear her lovely voice, so I can respond to what she's doing more freely. So
Beautiful.
That's why we're trying to talk this through a little bit.
Sweet. One thing I love to do, I learned this from one of my favorite free improvisation trainings called Music for People. If you've never heard of it, check it out, musicforpeople.org. Whenever you're in a Music for People workshop and you're preparing to start a free improvisation experience, everyone starts by putting their hands, I used to think it was kind of odd, but now I never do free improv without it. You put your hands on your head, just lightly, like you're making the top of a heart with your fingertips. Then as you inhale, you reach your arms over your head, and you exhale and let your arms come to your side. And that little gesture is like a cleansing breath, which we love to do in our lives, and it feels really good to do it before an improvisation, free improv, because then it's like you know how beautiful artwork has a frame around it. So this is kind of like an embodied frame of breath and silence, a little sound from the exhale. So here we go. You can join us if you wish. Inhale. Thank you. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. This is the freestyle part. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change
want to become. We want to be the
see
change
in
that
the
we want to see in the world.
The change that we want to see.
Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world.
Thank you, Patricia. The more recent version, which was I think 2017, which isn't very recent, I realize. A colleague of mine in the UK, Dave Camlin, arranged a version of this where he did a Game of Thrones mashup, and we changed it from D minor to C minor, and we added this section. I love the words. It was like, who we are were the words. Who we are. And it was this very, very exciting thing. And we had a different arrangement, and it included at the end, after we sang the song with the extra part, who we are. I'm not exactly doing it the exact way we did it before, but it was this beautiful, powerful message of who we are. And I remember leading the choir, standing in that power stance with my hands on my hips and standing, because that's what it felt like. Who we are. Then one of the outside choir members, the choir was made up of people incarcerated and people not incarcerated that sang together. Maria Coomer wrote this beautiful spoken word rap about Gandhi. And we had two inside singers or incarcerated singers perform the rap while we were very kind of quietly accompanying them on our little interlude. It was great. It was super fun. I love playing it.
So I wonder if you would describe for us right now what some of the changes are that you most hope to see in the world or in yourself.
Yeah, that's where I start. Absolutely. The change I want to see is personal changes of, boy, there's so many. Where do I start? Let me take a breath in on that one. Well, my current change is being even more aware of what I'm noticing in my body and following the wisdom of my whole self. So, a sense of heeding the wisdom of my body, not only on a regular physiological sense of eating the foods my body's craving, balancing work and rest, getting adequate sleep at night and rest, really affirming how my body is responding when I'm in a discernment space. What do I need to do? How should I be spending my time? What words should I be saying? What work should I be doing? How should I be interacting? That I'm always leaning into the wisdom of my own self. That's really my current personal change.
I love that phrase, discernment space. The idea of thinking of being in a discernment space. And I'm wondering, you are highly successful in academia, and I just want to say congratulations on your recent full professorship. That's really exciting. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
What an achievement, right?
Yeah.
And what a world to be in that's not known for being body connected.
Good point, yeah.
So what a challenge to bring this body connection work into a world where you are, you're in a space that has prized for a long time, for good reason, intellectual work, right? I'm wondering what brought you into academia.
Well, a lot of different things. Probably one of the inspirations was my sister Judy. I'm the youngest of 6 children, and the big spread in age. My oldest sibling is 16 years older than me, 1 year apart, 1 year apart, 1 year apart,
Wow.
5 years apart, 5 years apart, and then me. And so Judy was closest in age as me. And Judy, she earned a master's in public health from Harvard. She earned her PhD in health economics from Johns Hopkins. I remember going to both of those graduations and like, wow, she super inspired me on that. She inspired me on teaching group fitness and even taking piano lessons growing up. So she definitely inspired me. And then, and there's way more to that story, which I can share. Then other things, just love, curiosity. My undergraduate degrees in music education. I taught elementary children for 10 years before going to earn my PhD. There was a time when I was trying to decide, I basically was like, okay, I want to get a raise, and the best way to get a raise was to get more formal degrees.
To have a higher degree.
It was just going to make the most sense to go back to the University of Kansas because I already had 15 hours toward my master's, and they started offering courses at night. So I've earned my master's and had a fabulous time. My advisor, Dr. Jim Doherty, was so inspiring, and I learned so much. And I remember a lot of other people saying, oh, writing a thesis was hard. And yeah, it was hard, but it was really inspiring. I read about a constructivist approach to elementary music learning experiences with references to the ideas of John Dewey. John Dewey, studied with F.M. Alexander. So we're talking about somatic approach, front and center.
Actually lived in Burlington.
That's right, he
just
did.
saying.
He sure did. And he wrote, John Dewey wrote the introductions to F.M. Alexander's books and attributed his long life to the study he had with F.M. Alexander. And so,
just for reference, Alexander being the founder of the Alexander technique, which is often used in coaching singing now.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about movement re-education. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, super good. And so, basically, I'm like, I just kept thinking after I finished my master's, and then go for it. See what happens next if I go to another degree to study more. And then, so I did.
Was there a question that you were particularly curious about at that point that you wanted to follow up on?
Well, you know what? That was 2003 when I began my PhD. And the year before that, it was January of 2002, when I was still teaching at Stanley Elementary in the Overland Park School District in the Kansas City area. My partner and I, Matt and I, were both singing in the Festival Singers of Kansas City. There were several people in this choir that were involved in a nonprofit organization called Arts in Prison. I had no idea really much about it. And then I knew there was a choir related to this nonprofit organization called the East Hill Singers. So one Sunday, I was reading the Kansas City Arts, January of 2002, and noticed, oh, this choir is performing just a few miles from my house. Maybe I'll go check it out. And was blown away. So Elvira Voth, at 70 years old in 1995, had an idea of teaching people in prison to sing. She was able to make the right connections through some family. There was a deputy director of the prison in Topeka, the women's prison. So he connected with David McCune, who is the warden there at the Lansing Correctional Facility. So she started this choir where the men in the minimum security unit of the prison left the prison to sing in a concert with people from the Kansas City region. So it was this model that I based the Oakdale Choir after, of inside-outside combined. Different in that it was, there were only maybe 10 or so outside singers that would come inside the prison to rehearse. The choir met at a venue at 1 p.m., the day of a 4 p.m. concert. So the men left the prison. We had about a 2-hour rehearsal with the whole choir, an hour break, and then they performed. So I had gone to a concert and was like, whoa, we can take people who have been accused of committing a crime and have them sing in unison and in harmony with people from that same society. I've always been under the belief that singing and music making are just brilliant opportunities to connect with one another. We do that in all these beautiful episodes that you've been able to bring to the world in lots of different contexts. So anyway, the question really was like, wow, what is this? And even the semester before I started my PhD program, I was like, I didn't know anything about criminology, and I was really green to this whole topic. I just was curious. Spent a lot of time like going through all different journals to try to figure out, well, who's written about prison choirs and all of that. So yeah, I was curious from the concert I went to.
I want to just give a little bit of background to our listeners because we have many listeners who aren't in the States. And those who are in the States may not realize that the U.S. is home to less than 5% of the world's population, but nearly 16% of all incarcerated people. Roughly 2 million people are held in our jails and prisons. And it seems to me like we'd like to think it's only evil people who are locked away through a fair legal process, but the reality is that people of color, people in poverty, by vast percentages, end up behind bars more than white and wealthy people. And imprisonment is not fixing the safety problems that we face, clearly. Right. It's not a working system. Yep. And I'm wondering, I've never been, so I know these things from reading. And of course, from thriller novels and various novels that have prison scenes, and from media, from TV, from screens. And I'm wondering what you think I likely don't know from these sort of mass media impressions.
Right. Thank you for those statistics and bringing this point up. In addition to everything that you said, the United States has not abolished slavery. The 13th Amendment still allows slavery if someone's been accused of a crime, and every state has their own law regarding that. So there's been some efforts toward really abolishing, and every state has different work happening. But I think that's a really important point. If you are in a belief as I am, and everything you said about how prisons are not solving problems. In fact, there's a lot of evidence indicating prisons make people more ill. Not only the people in custody, but the people who work for prisons. And it also impacts the family members, people who have an immediate family member who've been to prison or jail. 113 million people. It's crazy. Long sentences do not deter crime. It actually increases the risk for future crime. So the good news is there are some really critical things happening, thinking and reframing. There's a concept called desistance, which is desisting is stopping criminal behavior. And so one level is just the primary level of stopping behavior. Another level is of identity formation. Like someone shifts their identity from feeling like a prisoner. And we have some terrible language like offender. And so if anybody can take one simple thing with them out of this podcast that will make a change is choosing people-centered language, talking about people in custody, talking about incarcerated individuals, formerly incarcerated individuals, and avoiding using words like offender, felon, prisoner. I mean, sometimes you might need to use it in certain contexts, but to go for the default of a person.
While you're talking about language, can I back you up for a second? When you said slavery has not been abolished, can you help me understand what you meant by slavery?
What I mean is that in prison, people are working for pennies on the hour. It's actually I was just reading this morning, it's only like 6% of people in prison that are working for, like in the state of Iowa, it's called Iowa Prison Industries. So it's hard to get those jobs. But the outcome of those kinds of jobs are that in the state of Iowa, any public institution like the University of Iowa, the other state universities, hospitals that are state-run, etc., have to get a bid from Iowa Prison Industries if they want to like order chairs or something that Iowa Prison Industries makes, as well as other private companies. And because the people making those chairs are getting paid pennies on the hour, the bid was always going to be less. Now, it's good that people have jobs in prison, but when they are only paid pennies on the hour, that's problematic. So that's an example of slavery, prison slavery. And more people have jobs running the prisons, like working in the food, working in the kitchen or the laundry, et cetera, et cetera. So then the prison is employing those people for pennies on the hour. But it's complicated. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check in with that to make sure I understood what you meant. So you said one thing to take away is using people-centric language. Is there anything else you want to share about helping people who haven't been inside prisons or seen inside prisons? What do you think is something that we might not know, that you've experienced yourself when you've gone and worked in Oakdale?
When we had the choir, we had 174 different inside singers over that 11-year period and 136 different outside singers and almost over thousands of people that came in for concerts. Since then, the class I designed that I used to teach in the prison called Peace Building, Singing and Writing in a Prison Choir. Just Iowa City students have pen pals with people in prison. Basically, the stigma is unreal. The stigma of prisoner, bad person. And it's just like every time that someone has a chance to, the simple concept of proximity, every time a person has a chance to connect with someone who's in prison, they're like, oh, prisoners are people. And it almost makes my stomach sick to even say I'm looking forward to the day when that's not a surprise. And I think this attitudinal shift is one of the biggest things that need to happen for this third level of desistance, which is the political and social processes that will help people released from prison connect to society. We need to have a welcoming community for people released from prison. We need to learn what people's needs are, individual needs, and not only people that are currently and formerly incarcerated, but people who are survivors of crimes. What are the things that people need to flourish, to survive, to connect?
What is this word you're saying? Desistance?
DESISTANCE, desistance. Criminologists have been writing about this for a very, very long time. It's what does it take for someone to desist or stop criminal behavior? Keeping in mind that criminal behavior itself is socially created. Many things that we might consider a crime now, like even think of the book bans. I mean, my goodness, there are things that are considered crimes now that weren't crimes in the past.
Right. So you're doing this interesting work of blending, working with young college students. I assume most of them are young. I don't know. That's maybe a...
It's a mix, mainly young. It's mainly traditional. And I have graduate students also that have different age ranges. I've been going, since the Oakdale prison won't let the choir restart, I've been going into a juvenile detention center, working with kids age 13 to 17-year-old, doing music groups. But did I answer your question yet? I'm not sure if I answered your first question. When I started going on and on about the clarification of the 13th Amendment, I'm not sure I even answered that one yet.
Yeah, so you were saying that when I walk into a prison, what I might be most surprised by is how human the people in the prison are.
The incarcerated individuals,
That these are people. As you were building this choir, this inside-outside choir, and the other work that you've been doing when you haven't been able to do it because of COVID, you are looking for ways to connect with the humanity of the people who are incarcerated and to kind of draw them into this, to the outside web as well. Would that be an accurate?
Yeah, that's absolutely part of it. And it came to a very simple thing. And we also, in the choir, used to have a reflective writing exchange where everybody in the choir had a topic, or a menu of topics, actually, they could write about. Because this is a choir where the people can't just go to a restaurant after the rehearsal and hang out. So having a reflective writing exchange gave the group a chance to connect with one another in a more personal way, one-on-one. So the fall of 2015, which happened to be the same season that a new warden began, Jim McKinney, who was very progressive and supportive of the project, because that makes a big difference. A lot of people behind bars and in jails, and there's a huge need to sing together to build our sense of common humanity. So I hope people listening to this episode will go, maybe I should think about connecting with people through a group singing, because the type of singing that we lead without choral scores, it's perfect for this kind of population because you can just get in there and make some connections. But back to the point I was making about the goal of the choir, we one of the inside singers wrote in his writing reflection, what he thought we were doing as a choir was creating a community of caring. So that's our goal. And when I say community of caring, I'm talking about 3 levels minimum. The first level is self-care. What are we doing to build our own sense of self-care in our own lives individually? Second of all, what are we doing in our own micro-communities, whoever that is, our family networks, our neighborhood networks, our work networks, to build caring communities in those interactions? And then the larger global sense of communities of caring. What are we doing to work toward ceasefire, to work toward making some broader sense of, are you familiar with the term Ubuntu?
Yes.
Yes. So most people probably are on this episode because many of us are part of the Ubuntu Choir Training Network. Love it. Ubuntu.
It has come up before.
Good.
Yeah.
So Ubuntu, for anybody listening that doesn't know, It's a South African concept, and Desmond Tutu defined it as, my humanity is caught up and inextricably bound in your humanity. And it can even be rippled out to our connection with natural earth. We're all connected as living beings. So that is central to this concept of, when we talk about the larger community of caring, the idea of Ubuntu.
I love that sense of enlarging our perspective from the one person, connecting to the people around us, connecting larger and connected to the earth, to the natural world, because that's part of the webbing, right? We are inextricably natural creatures.
Yeah. And that web, another element to keep in mind, I think, is the web of time. I have a mentor who taught me that we can send healing streams of grace to our past. So when we think about creating communities of caring, we're human. We hurt people. We make different types of errors, small ones, major ones. So one of the most awful feelings I ever get is that feeling of regret. Ooh, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. And instead of living in that energy, this tool I learned from Sandy Kemp, she taught me, hey, we can send healing streams of grace to our past, and how we, as in our present moment, have a relationship to the past that's more of a healing, nurturing relationship. That's where our self-care and self-compassion can really deepen this feeling of building communities of caring.
I'm curious, when you are deepening that connection for yourself in your own body, do you find yourself singing? How do you do that for yourself?
That's a great question. I do sometimes do that. You know what I do sometimes, Patricia? And I get that frustration or whatever kind of thing. This is something I started doing after I came back. Just last October, I got to do the community choir leadership training. I don't know if I'd done this before that, but I'll step outside and sing a song, whatever comes to my mind, or I have a playlist called Healing Songs, and I'll play shuffle and just see what song comes to mind and sing with that song or listen to that song. And a brand new practice I've started to do is, well, I've done a thing I call writing your own prayers. I hope to write a book about that at some point, where I take a traditional prayer and I rewrite it in whatever way that feels good for me. I like a traditional prayer I may have grown up with. But another thing I've started to do is to take a song that I know and rewrite the words to express a prayer or a desire or whatever I need to express. If it's a song that I know so well, I can just create new lyrics to it. So those are a few things. Sometimes there's a thing called X formation. Another system that I have trained in is called interplay. Interplay. Are you familiar with interplay?
No.
Oh my gosh. Please look it up. Interplay.org. It's created by Cynthia Whitten-Henry, Phil Porter, uses storytelling, movement, and voicing, creative expression, and community building based on 8 very common sense tools or ideas, such as affirmation, looking for the good, naming the good, feeling the good. One of those tools is X formation. It's a made-up word, interplay, that Phil and Cynthia made up, because we're always taking information into our bodies. So X formation is the concept of what do we do to let it go. So those practices I was just sharing are some examples of X formation. And sometimes it's just breathing in super deep and letting out a
I love it. I was just going to ask if you had any wordless practices, because I noticed that a lot of what you were sharing was circling around words.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you had also wordless song practices. I love, for example, that in the change there's that ooh, the way that can kind of sit in my body. When I was singing that with you, it felt so good. You know, it felt grounding. And I wondered if you explored your voice in those ways.
Yeah, I would like to do that more. I think I do. A lot of times I'll just, at home, we are doing just funny little songs quite often, just to express something, or just all the time it feels, or maybe not all the time. When I'm feeling centered and grounded, then I can just let out those weird songs that come to mind, and that's a good feeling. I think that a lot of them do have words though. So, although one of the interplay activities is called babbling. There's lots of variations of babbling. The traditional practice is you have two people. The leader gives a word like apple, and one person for 30 seconds babbles anything they want to say about apple. The other person just listens, doesn't interrupt. And you can do babbling on a made-up language. So that's kind of another example of not using words to release stress and to share a story.
Yeah. I want to shift directions just a second. Thinking about you being the youngest of 6, that's a fairly large family. Mm-hmm. Are they living around you? Did you sing growing up together? They were older than you are. Did you learn songs from your siblings?
Well, we, as a family, we would every holiday have a family band. It was a crazy thing. I'd be at the piano and we'd sing holiday songs, but everybody else would be playing a very, very non-traditional instrument. Like my dad played the thing that you use in the fireplace called the snappers, the fireplace equipment that you use to pick up logs.
Oh, to pick up logs that are hot?
Snap,
sort of
snap.
Tongs, like
Yep.
giant
He played the
metal
snappers,
tongs.
and Jane played the spices. And maybe my brother Bob played the snappers, but my dad played the copper fish mold. So you have a fish mold and you play it with this wooden spoon like a weiro.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as far as singing, we maybe sang a little bit like Girl Scouts. And as far as my family right now, out of all those siblings, my sister closest in age to me is no longer in her body on the earth. She graduated to the next realm unexpectedly May 20th of 2012. I wrote a song in honor of her called Find the Joy that the Oakdale Choir did. And I'm still grieving because that happened May 20th, just a couple days ago, because today's, it was just Monday of this week.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So, because your question was about what did we do with singing growing up. But that story of Judy is pretty powerful because she, like I mentioned, was the one that influenced me to earn a PhD. She had 2 German short-haired pointers named Brunhilde and Siegfried, and she was on her way to an agility trial with them when someone fell asleep at the wheel and crossed the midline, and Bruni and Judy died in the accident, and Siegfried survived. The dog Ziggy's no longer alive, but the week after this, Judy's friends had a celebration of her life and had these bracelets that said WW Judy D, what would Judy do? And the answer was find the joy. Because she was always having fun in her work, and when things got too stressful, let's go to the ball game. So I wrote a song. It took a while to write the lyrics and reflect on how do we find joy when we're living through grief. And the Oakdale Choir performed it in the May of 2013 season. The theme of that concert was Morning is Broken, spelled M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, is broken. And that was an original song one of the Inside Singers wrote about the idea of working through grief and all of that.
I think one of the misconceptions that we carry, that I carried for a long time, was that grief and joy are binary, that when you're in one, you can't be in the other. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to be able to see that I can feel both of them at the same time. Mm-hmm. What a complex mess we are as humans, you know?
You know what I was thinking about also is that, I don't know, and maybe actors can do this, but I've never been able to sing and cry at the same time. And I don't think I've ever been able to sing and laugh. Can we sing and laugh at the same time? I mean, unless laughter is part of it.
It kind of takes your breath. Yeah. Both of those, both crying and laughing take your breath and your voice.
Isn't that
on a job, right? They have another job to do.
Isn't that interesting? And yet, you know, we can hold both of those at the same time, but yet we can't do them while singing.
Right. What are the biggest questions that you are carrying right now?
Ooh, that's a
Yeah, that's a big question. It's not like a little tiny thing, but
Yeah.
you clearly are so, you're clearly thoughtful and committed and also working hard, you know? So I want to just open up this little bit of space right here to discern for a moment what feels like the biggest thing inside your body right now.
Well, I tell you, I just got an email about 30 minutes before our conversation about something I was really hoping could almost be like Oakdale Choir 2.0. I've been co-leading a singing group with a person here in town in Iowa City, where I'm based, Coralville, Iowa, Marie Gary. She's got these great songs, and she's written, and we've been having a lot of fun. And our goals from the very beginning were to do more than just gather and sing. We wanted to bring it to another population, or we wanted to pick a particular focus and have our singing build toward a goal. So in this whole year, we just started in October when I got back from the community choir leadership training, and meet with our circle and talk about what directions we want to go. And I did one community singing event at Inside Out Reentry, which is a local nonprofit supporting people formerly incarcerated. And just was thinking, what if we were to meet instead of at this church, because we currently are just meeting once a month. The question that I'm going to answer right now is, what's next? That's the big question I'm trying to answer.
Okay.
But so I was like, what if we could just have a meeting with this group and meet at their space? Then I got a message that they don't have the staffing for that right now, and it might have been the way that I addressed the question to the wrong person or something, but it's like, oh my God, I was in tears just like an hour ago wondering, where can I just bring the singing? Because there's been nothing I've been able to do that's been the same as the Oakdale Choir. I've been going to the Juvenile Detention Center of Lynn County, and the kids don't want to, singing the songs that I did with the Oakdale Choir doesn't align with their identities. We've been doing other, and I have this summer a student percussionist who's a music therapy major and a rapper who's phenomenal that are going to come with me, and we're going to do that kind of music making, which will be hopefully great. But it's like, what's that one great song? There's a great song that says, the real work begins when we don't know what we're doing.
Oh, that's fabulous. I don't know that song. I want that song in my life.
It's called The Real Work
Yeah.
is the title of the song, and
Okay.
I don't recall more than that right now, but
That's okay. We'll find it. We'll put it in the show notes.
yeah. And I have other like spiritual questions and things like that
Yeah.
are bigger. Like, how do we individually and socially understand the divine in our lives? So I feel like, we can think about it. There are some people that really see the divine as, some people maybe don't believe in a divine. Other people may see divine as God, and that God's separate from us. And how does that impact how we interact with other people? If a person feels like the divine is within every single person in nature, won't that impact how we interact with others? If we have a deep love and respect of the divine. So that's another curiosity that I have. And the other thing, here's another one. Our ability to interact with people, I feel like, has shrunk, in that for a lot of people, their primary mode of communicating is a one-directional mode. Sending an email, sending a text, sending a message on another social media platform. And that does not allow interaction. I feel like that's got to be the root of a lot of our challenges with how we are going to connect with each other. Is how can we connect if we've forgotten how to be in the moment with another person?
Or if we ever knew. I think that in some ways the challenges that we're facing as humankind, they're so big, they're so overwhelming, and they've started everybody's emergency systems up, right? All of us on some level are activated by a level of fear about what's coming. So the skill for us to interact with each other, the skill for us to be able to hear what somebody else is saying when it's different from what we believe or what we hold to be true, the skill to be able to sort through which of these things are beliefs and which of these things are questions of truth that are verifiable in some way. If somebody hands me a hamburger and says, this hamburger is made out of wood chips, but it's actually a beef hamburger. I'm working here. I'm struggling here to try. I haven't been thinking about this much, but I'm thinking there are some things that are verifiable, right? There are some facts, but there are a lot of things that are not factual.
Right. Post-truth world, right?
I think it's really challenging right now to figure out what kind of communication are we looking for right here.
Yeah.
Are we looking to see and be seen? Are we looking to verify actuality, what actually, to see what actually is more accurately? Yeah.
I think one beautiful thing about group singing is the practice of gathering and singing together gives us the tools to learn how to connect with each other and how to respond to each other. There were even people in the Oakdale Choir pre-pandemic, obviously it was all pre-pandemic, who maybe felt pretty introverted, but yet felt like they could have a connection, a meaningful connection with the other people in the group because we were singing together. That sense of attunement with one another, connecting and singing. So I think what's great, the community singing circles that I've had the honor of going to, like I got to go to Los Angeles in, it was June of 2019, and Maggie Wheeler had a beautiful singing circle with Songfest, I think is what it was called, with like 10 different song leaders and singing where we were walking among each other and singing and just direct connecting while we're singing. That is living. I don't know what the word I'm trying to say. It's like that's what I think there's a huge craving for, but yet, as you mentioned, some people have that fear, they're scared. Maybe it's just, we learned through practice, and under lockdown, people were, depending on what their jobs were and what they needed to do and how they handled lockdown, but some people just curled up and were alone, and so now they have that as a bodily memory, like, oh, I can always just go home and put my head in the sand. I can always just get out, and maybe that's the safer place to be. Yet we know that we're human beings that learn in social networks. I mean, I don't mean social network like Facebook. I mean a social network like connecting with other people. We learn, but
And one of the things that is interesting to me, especially again with you working with young adults, is that idea of navigating a social network like Facebook takes enormous skill and ability to do it in a way that is clear, respectful, truthful. And we're asking our kids to do it when they're 11, 12, 13. It's just not an age at which you have those skills. So we're dumping them into a social network that's extremely difficult to navigate, in my mind. Anyway.
yeah. In fact, that reminds me of that book that's on this bestseller list right now. New York Times just hosted that. Is it The Age of Anxiety? The Anxiety. Oh, criminy! I'll come up with it in a moment. But the author makes an argument that we need to have phone-free schools. Kids in schools should not have phones, because that skill of posting something. I've many times hesitated to post anything on Facebook, many times, because how will someone respond? If I post that, oh, I had this really great experience happen, and someone is having a bad day and they read it and they might feel worse from how they're feeling, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. I can't control how anybody else responds to what I post, but that's an entire way of our communication that could potentially be harmful.
Yeah.
And it is harmful. We know it. There's a lot of people that are hurt through the way people are using social media.
That was just a huge loss that you just experienced of the program that you were hoping was going to go through, didn't go through at this point, at this iteration. Are there other things that you have on your burners right now?
Yeah, there are quite a few. Yeah, there are quite a few. And as far as which one I'm most excited about, there have been 4 different things I've done to try to make up for not having the Oakdale Choir. One of them started January of 2022. It's an international music and justice inquiry network. So these are folks from all over the globe that work with music in prisons, and we host monthly Zoom meetings where different people will share out the work they're doing. And all of the recordings for it are currently on the Oakdale Choir website, and we might be making a YouTube channel for people to connect with, learning more about what's going on with people in prison, or with music making in prison globally. But that's like, it's like I need the people power, and there have been a couple people volunteering to possibly help with that. But there's potential for growing that. Basically, all these different ideas I'm going to share with you, I'm hoping to combine into one cohesive project that makes sense, rather than having so many scattered projects. So the Oakdale Choir, I'm trying to form a couple working teams. One of them, a formerly incarcerated team, acronym FIT, and then an incarcerated team, IT. And these would be basically people that, and I welcome anybody listening to this podcast who is interested in any way, shape, or form with this work. I'll put you to work. I'll give you a project to work on, because there's a lot that needs to be done. And
If it were the being incarcerated team, then you'd have a Fitbit when you connected them.
That's a good one.
So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
That's good. I love it. There's a beautiful new theory called generative justice. Did I mention it yet in this conversation? No. So it's about being in solidarity with people who have lived experiences in prison in order to build positive relationships. There's a lot more to it, but that's the basic idea. And by the way, if anybody doesn't know about a book about this topic, I wrote a book called Music Making in U.S. Prisons, Listening to Incarcerated Voices. And when I did a authors critic panel at a criminology conference last November, one of the criminologists that talked about it was Fergus MacNeill from Scotland, who is one of the key thinkers behind generative justice. So the FIT and the IT teams are highlighting those ideas and the fact that we're building relationships. And basically, he's no longer alive, but a man named Hal Popinski defined the opposite of violence as responsiveness. So the idea is that we just, it's kind of common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't so common. We listen and hear what our needs are, and respond to those, and continue to build relationships. Because that's what this project was about, was singing together, building relationships, and abolishing the prison industrial complex in the process.
There's a little goal.
Yeah. Or simply, maybe a more simple, there's lots of ways of doing that, and it's dismantling carceral logics, or stopping the assumption that punishment will solve a conflict.
I love that. We're going to take it from there.
Okay.
Stopping the assumption that punishment will solve a conflict. And go into lightning round questions.
Okay.
I think we'll just let people sit with that. You've given us so many ideas to mull over and to let kind of vibrate in our bodies. There will be in the show notes ways to connect with you, ways to follow your work and the works of people you've mentioned. And I would encourage people to give some thought to how you might interact with the prison system as it is. And then some thought to how you might interact with the people who are behind bars in this system.
And then I think the better word would be systems, plural, because there is the school to prison nexus. The way, if anybody listening is a teacher or knows a teacher, to what extent are we really affirming all of our students' remarkable qualities? And that's again the idea of not responding with punishment, but responding with affirmation and thinking about. So we got this. There's a lot. There's the legal system. It goes on and on and on.
I can tell that you are just, it's like Mary is sitting on top of a huge pile of books and knowledge and things, and trying to pull out a few words and phrases to share with us right now. And that's challenging, and I hear that. Yeah. Lightning round questions?
Let's do it.
All right. What's an album that was really important to you?
Maybe the Muppet Show albums. Was there that was a TV show, wasn't it? But the album that had the song "Moving Right Along," in search of good times and good friends with good friends. I was in the Muppet Show fan club, and so I have all these great memories of like choreographing a dance to those songs from the album, and with my sister, and making up gymnastics routines to those songs and stuff like that.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
What is your favorite soup?
Oh my goodness. Anything vegetarian that's made with love. But I do
Who cooks in your family? Or do you have local restaurants that make soup with love?
Yeah. There's a beautiful place called Plentiful Pantry, and we started getting food delivered that they cooked. I do cook sometimes, and I do like butternut squash soup. So there's one answer to your question, but I have a hard time. I thought about that, like, I don't know. I like all. If it's healthy, I like it. And it has to be cooked with love, though, because if it's not, then, it can give you digestion problems.
What is a sound you feel strongly about?
Laughter. It brings great joy. I love hearing laughter. I love laughter in my house. Sometimes I hear my husband laughing when he's doing like a telehealth in another room. I can just hear his, because he has got a boisterous laughter. So I love that.
Nice. Who is an artist you wish more people listened to?
How about themselves? Each person taking a moment to just express their own artistic desire, love, expression, whether it be through singing, through dance, through visual art, through poetry, through some other kind of technological art form, playing instruments. Just let people express their own inner art identities.
Before we close, where can we find you and follow your projects for anyone who doesn't have access to the show notes?
Well, currently, I still keep all the, like every time I've been interviewed on a podcast or journal articles, the international music, it's called Imagine Caring Communities, that international group. And then last summer, Patricia, we did a inside-outside songwriting collaboration project. So those things are all on the Oakdale Choir website.
Okay. A huge thank you to you, Mary, for coming on A Breath of Song, and a huge thank you to our listeners. I'm so glad you're singing with us. You can visit abreathofsong.com to see the show notes with links, lyrics, Patty Piotrowski's glorious artwork. Sign up to get artwork and music in your mailbox. How beautiful is that? And be one of the generous people who put something in the gratitude jar to help cover costs. Before Patty or I is paid, 25% is donated to the Jazz Foundation of America, which directly supports jazz, blues, and roots musicians in need. The skill and the artistry of these musicians has directly shaped most of the music that I share on this podcast in one way or another, yet historically they have been inadequately recognized and unfairly recompensed. That's what prompted me to search out this particular group for us to support. Let's sing The Change again to help it sink in more deeply, Mary.
Sounds great. Beautiful. Big inhale. A big exhale. And maybe before we sing it, we can all just take a moment to pause and reflect on what is like a little micro change that we wish to see in ourselves, or a medium change in our communities, or the broader world. Here we go. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Who do we want to become? We want to be the change that we want to see in the world. Change that we want to see in the world.
Mary, thank you so much for coming today. And thank you, listeners and singers, for joining Mary and me today for A Breath of Song. I'm grateful that you are taking care of yourself and listening to your voice. I believe, like Mary, that making a better world starts with tuning into ourselves and each other, which is what we just did. So, yay us!
Ow!
If you're liking this podcast, please share with a friend. And next time we'll plant another song. Until then, be well.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for listening.
You are so welcome.